You are Locked On Warriors Postcast, part of Locked On Sports San Francisco on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yo, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Locked On Warriors Postcast. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel. You may know me as the former producer for the Murph and Mac Morning Show on KMBR. And tonight, the Golden State Warriors could not close out the Utah Jazz, falling 131-128, a colossal collapse as they let this one slip away despite leading by 12 points with about 3 minutes to play. Not the way you wanted to start off this very long road trip. And there were some bright spots with Brandin Podziemski scoring a career-high 29. Steph had 32, but it wasn't enough when the Jazz didn't have Lauri Markkanen or Collin Sexton. That is not how you want this one to go. You need reinforcements. You need some help. But we got some good news, Dub Nation. Jimmy Butler is on the way. He's going to be a Golden State Warrior. Breaking news from Shams Charania tonight. We'll break it all down. But first, I want to thank all of you for watching us on the Locked On Sports San Francisco YouTube channel. If you aren't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button right now. Turn those notifications on. Thanks also for listening on the Locked On Warriors podcast feed and making us your first listen following these Dubs games. Make sure to check out the Locked On Warriors Daily Show for more in-depth coverage. Today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And in this one, we'll get to the Jimmy stuff. I promise you, we'll get there. The Warriors showed you tonight why they need him, but we got to get through this game first and what exactly happened to the Warriors. How the hell did they lose this game to the Utah Jazz when the Jazz don't have Collin Sexton? They don't have Lauri Markkanen on the floor. What in the hell did I just watch? The Warriors looked terrible tonight. Like they didn't even really have like a bunch of turnovers in that second half, but they played well in the middle of the game, but just the defense in that fourth quarter was awful. Gave up 44 points to the Utah Jazz. 44 points. Again, I'm going to say it, without Lauri Markkanen and without Collin Sexton. I have no idea how the hell this team just rolled over and died defensively in this game so terribly. It just awful. Just an awful effort. Offensively, too, at the end, it looked like the Warriors just didn't have the gas to get over the hump. There's so many blocks at the rim in the last couple minutes. Draymond Green got, stuffed like a Build-A-Bear at a local mall by the Utah Jazz, by Walker Kessler, I believe it was. Just absolutely stonewalled Draymond Green in one of the in a very key offensive possession where Draymond went up for a layup. Pretty soft at the end there. You can't bring that weak S inside anywhere in the NBA. Nothing against any team. That shot's getting blocked. And then Brandin Podziemski had one knocked away. Steph was making some layups at the end there, but they needed just a little bit more. Steph, we said he had 32 points, but it came on 31 shots. And by the way, Steph only took 2 free throws on those 31 shots. That's absolutely insane. Dude's getting he even had a foul call overturned in this one where they said it was marginal when he shot a three-pointer from the corner and the Jazz defender flew into his arm and hit Steph so hard that he spun around like a ballerina. And they said no foul. On review, they said it was marginal contact, which is absolutely hilarious, man. Like, even when Steph is clearly fouled and it's reviewed, they still somehow overturn it. And Steph has the worst whistle of any superstar NBA player that I've ever seen. But if you guys watched this game, you already heard Bob Fitzgerald's diatribe about this during the game. I enjoy the Fitz in Buki broadcast, but there are points in time, man, where it just kind of feels like I'm listening to the Bob Fitzgerald podcast while there's a Warriors game going on in the background. I kind of wish Bob would just call the game sometimes, man. Tonight was one of those nights. But the Warriors, I want to be really upset about this loss, and it does bug me, but ultimately you only had 10 active bodies tonight, and you had guys like Jackson Rowe getting his first NBA action, playing fourth quarter minutes. He had played 14 minutes tonight. How many of the guys on the roster from today's game spent time in the G League this year? We got Quentin Post, we got Pat Spencer, we got Guy Santos, we got Jackson Rowe. So 4 of the 6 Warriors who saw action tonight all ended up, we're all in the G League at the start of the year. So, that's where you were at today. And the reason that the Warriors had so few available bodies is because of the most insane NBA trade deadline that I have seen in my entire lifetime. And the NBA usually is a little more entertaining than the NFL trade deadline or the MLB trade deadline. But man, this NBA trade deadline is one for the books. We will all remember where we were when the Luka trade went down. The Luka for AD, just absolutely earth-shattering, and somehow makes this Jimmy Butler deal feel like not as big in the NBA lexicon. But if you're a Warriors fan, man, this trade is everything for you because it now makes the Warriors a legitimate contender. And I mean, what level of a contender they are, we can debate that. But this Warriors team now with Jimmy Butler, with Draymond Green, both patrolling that defensive end of the floor, they aren't going to have another fourth quarter where they give up 44 points with both of those guys on the floor. I'm going to go ahead and guarantee that right now for the rest of Dub Nation. I mean, they now have an identity, and the identity is a nasty team that's going to go out there and beat you up. I would not want to go against a team that had both Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler staring at me from across the floor. I think that I would be pretty scared about, I mean, not just losing the game, but I might lose some teeth as well. You know what I mean? Like, those two dudes are nasty. They're going to hurt you on the basketball court. And I mean, I like this. I love the direction that this team is going. Defensively, with Jimmy Butler, with Draymond Green, you can create a juggernaut that will absolutely just stop teams in these clutch minutes, in these crunch time moments. And we've seen the Warriors play 31 clutch minutes games this year, the most in the NBA, tied with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Jimmy Butler is about as clutch gets, man. Like, how often have we seen this guy just since he's been in Miami? I mean, how many big shots did we see him hit there? He led the Heat to 2 different NBA finals in the last 5 or 6 years. That's crazy to think about, considering that the Heat have never been in the conversation of the best team in the East in that time. Like, maybe just like, maybe some pundits would throw them in there. But I mean, most people wouldn't seriously take the Miami Heat in the last several years in the Jimmy Butler era as a legitimate contender to be the best team in the East. They give you like the Bucks or the Celtics or a team like that. They wouldn't be giving you the Heat. But I mean, you see what Jimmy Butler did over there. He is a dog. He is absolutely just, I mean, tough as nails. Gets it out the mud. I mean, if you know anything about his backstory, it's a very easy guy to like. I mean, he's a very hard worker. The one thing with Jimmy, obviously, is how things have ended in every single stop along his career. In Chicago, didn't end super well. In Minnesota, did not end well at all. That's one of my all-time favorite NBA stories, like lineage stories. You're talking about the legacy of Jimmy Butler. You have to talk about that Minnesota Timberwolves practice where he showed up, and when he was holding out for his contract, he was holding in, so he was still at the facility, but wasn't participating in practice because he was waiting for a new contract. This was back when Tom Thibodeau was still the head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves, and Jimmy Butler very angrily took the entire second unit and worked the entire first string starters when in practice one day, notoriously left, showed up on ESPN later that day, declaring that he needed a new contract and just throwing everybody in Minnesota under the bus. That whole event was pretty funny if you're not a Timberwolves fan. But if you start thinking about it in the context of that kind of circus coming here to Golden State and the kinds of circuses that we've had in the past, we're talking, of course, about the Draymond Green and Jordan Poole incident. Can these personalities mesh? That is the biggest question mark of this edition. And I think only time will tell. But ultimately, how do you not like playing alongside Steph Curry? And maybe you don't necessarily love playing alongside Draymond Green if you're Jimmy Butler, but I have a feeling that on the floor, like, they are going to mesh because Jimmy's a guy who likes to shoot. He likes to get a shot up. Draymond Green's a guy who likes to pass. That works out pretty well. And both of these dudes are dogs on defense. Like, they are both going to get after the other team, and they're going to get after their teammates that aren't picking up their end of the bargain on the defensive end of the floor. So I think that in the basketball sense, those personalities mesh very well. I think that Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler are going to hold this entire team accountable defensively, especially when you consider Jerry Stackhouse and what he's been kind of doing with the coaching staff from the defensive perspective this year with all the report cards and all that he's been doing. The accountability on the defensive end of the floor is going to be sky high for this team. And I really do think that this will be a shift, like a very clear shift in the Warriors' identity. I think the rest of this season, they have a legitimate identity, and that is a huge deal for this team because the Warriors, they haven't had one all season long. It's their identity is they're a small team that can't shoot. It's not a very good identity, not a winning identity to have in the NBA. But with Jimmy Butler, this all changes. You now have much better shooting. You also get that much needed second scorer, the guy who can go get the shot anytime that he wants to get a shot that is not named Stephen Curry. And thank God the Warriors finally have one of these guys, so we don't have to sit here every single night and cross our fingers and pray that Buddy Hield and Brandin Podziemski and Guy Santos and GP2 will all end up scoring some points. And I mean, tonight, most of those guys did play pretty well, but it was not nearly enough scoring to beat the Jazz. I mean, you did have enough scoring. 128 can win you a game in today's NBA, but again, 44 points given up in the fourth quarter. You will not see that again with Jimmy Butler in a Warriors uniform this year. As long as he and Draymond are both healthy on the defensive end of the floor, this team is now nasty, dirty, tough. They're going to beat you up, and they're going to get it out the mud every single one of these games. The Warriors are already leading the league in clutch minutes games with 31 of them. I expect them to play a lot more before the end of the season, but I expect them to be a lot better in these moments now that they have another option besides Steph, now that they have someone else who can reliably put the ball through the cylinder, and Jimmy can play defense, like on-ball defense with the best of them. So Jimmy can take the primary assignment defensively. Draymond can be that center fielder that he is on defense and just patrol the paint. And man, oh man, this team is starting to look like a contender. We got a lot more to talk about, man. I mean, we got to talk a little bit about tonight's game. I mean, I know the ramifications of this trade, but we got to get through some of the things from tonight. Some of the good things. Let's talk about Brandin Podziemski, the AirPods. Big night for him. 40 minutes for AirPods in the starting lineup tonight. Let's break that down next here on the Locked On Warriors postcast. Today's show is sponsored by Game Time. Attending NFL playoff games is an unforgettable experience that brings fans together. And in years past, when the 49ers have been in the playoffs, they've had some definitely unforgettable matchups. And I'm sure they'll be back next season with more high drama. But when you're looking for tickets, high drama is the last thing you need. And for a drama-free experience, I go with Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I recently used Game Time Picks to check out some Warriors tickets, of course, since the 49ers are cooked, and browsing through the deals was simple, and I found great value for all kinds of seats around the venue. The Super Deal was especially impressive, offering the best value for the event. The app's features like seat views before you buy and all-in pricing with no surprise fees at checkout made the experience smooth and reliable. Plus, the on-time ticket delivery and lowest price guarantee gave me peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to the Locked On Warriors postcast. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel, and tonight, the Warriors, a terrible loss, 131-128, as they had a 12-point lead with about 3 minutes left in this game and just let it all slip through their fingers. And you lose to the Utah Jazz without Lauri Markkanen and without Collin Sexton. It's an absolutely inexcusable loss. And honestly, if the Warriors did not trade for Jimmy Butler today, oh man, I'd be screaming on this show right now. I would be so upset. I would be, like steam coming out of the ears level mad. Like Brian Murphy level mad when anyone brings up the Los Angeles Lakers or the Los Angeles Dodgers or any team from Los Angeles for that matter. And really, we got to talk about it a little bit because the Warriors just absolutely wasted a career night from Brandin Podziemski. He had 29 points on 8 of 18 shooting. He was 3 of 10 from three-point range, 30%. You'd like that to be a little bit better. But the main thing that impressed me with Pods is that he got to the free throw line 13 times, converted 10 of those 13 free throws. He was really in attack mode all night long. 6 boards, 4 assists. And he also led the game in like shots to the face yet again. Like, dude keeps taking elbows left and right every time he is mixing it up in the paint. I guess that's kind of what happens when you're, one of those smaller bodies mixing it up with those big trees down there in the paint. And you get caught with a couple inadvertent elbows. This one was from Keontae George, who isn't exactly one of the trees down in the paint there, but hey, those elbows are pointy nevertheless, regardless of who they're on. And Brandin Podziemski, man, this guy cannot catch a break. I swear, this guy gets hit in the face like every other day, like every other game. This guy's taken an elbow, a knee, like a inadvertent fist to the nose. And we've already seen this guy have to wear the mask this year. He hates that mask seemingly, and he's just continues to get clocked in the noggin. And man, we need to get Brandin Podziemski, like, I don't know, like some extra Vaseline on the face or something so that those shots can become a little more glancing, like something to help my guy out. And man, maybe he just needs to go full Rip Hamilton, never take the mask off. And then, you have that added layer of protection. But regardless of how many times he got hit in the face tonight, Brandin Podziemski kept coming back. He led the starting lineup in plus minus. He had a -1. The bench, everybody on the bench, positive plus minus, everybody in the starting lineup, negative plus minus. So take that as you will. But I thought that Brandin Podziemski really looked great tonight again. And this is now a common theme, something that he's been doing since he came back from his injury. And I mean, he's now played 7 games, and in that span, he's playing very, very, very well. And again, tonight, career high, 29 points. But over his last 7 games, Brandin Podziemski has been averaging 15.6 points, 4.6 rebounds, and 3.6 assists since he came back from injury on January 23rd against the Chicago Bulls. He has really turned a corner. And I mean, it's a time to talk about it since they're playing the Jazz. Do you still wish that they traded Pods for Markkanen? I think that it's kind of hard to tell right now because Markkanen has been dealing with that back injury all season long. But Brandin Podziemski, this is the guy that you thought that the Warriors were going to get going into the season. This is the guy that made the Warriors kind of say, maybe we don't want to give up this guy and picks and other pieces to get Lauri Markkanen. And ultimately, was it the right move? That's kind of TBD because Lauri Markkanen still has a long career left, and so does Brandin Podziemski. So that's going to be something that is kind of going to be debated for years to come. But the one thing that is for certain is you're kind of glad that he's still on this team right now because the Warriors really lack scorers and ball handlers. He can do a little bit of both. And now with Jimmy Butler coming in, he can probably have even more room to operate. I mean, I think Brandin Podziemski is going to get even better with Jimmy Butler coming into the mix in Golden State. And I'm excited to see what he's able to do with Jimmy in the lineup as well. I mean, I think that this allows Brandin to just kind of do what he does. He doesn't have to be as much of a shooter. I mean, he's been really relied on as a three-point shooter since he came back from this injury. And he's been doing all right since he came back. I mean, his three-point shot is right around 42%. So that's really good since he came back from injury. But this is not something that I think is very sustainable. I don't think that Brandin Podziemski is going to continue to shoot over 40% from 3 for the rest of the season. But maybe if you throw Jimmy Butler in there, he doesn't have to take as many threes. He can just kind of do what he does, which is a little bit of everything. He can be an assist man, can be taking those charges on defense. He's very, very, very solid. The great connector, as Steve Kerr likes to say. And I think that the Jimmy Butler addition makes him even more dangerous. But the number one guy that's going to be helped the most, and I see my guy, Sergeant David Atland and from the Marines. We got Marines listening to the show, man. He says Curry now has help. And thank goodness that Curry now has help because Steph, man, 30-something shots tonight and only 32 points. He's turned into a volume scorer with the way that defenses are coming at him, the way that he's getting double teamed off every single screen. I mean, you're watching the effects of that. Like Steph is just laboring through these games. He is so injured, and every single shot that he takes, he is moving. He is not taking like any set shots at all that I can remember, except for early in this game when he took one when the Jazz defense just kind of forgot about Steph coming off a screen. And I think Steph surprised himself from being so open that he missed that shot. But ultimately, Steph Curry is going to be the one that benefits the most from the addition of Jimmy Butler. Let's talk about that next here on the Locked On Warriors postcast. The show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What are some of your relationship green flags? We often hear about the red flags we should avoid, but what if we focused more on identifying the positive signs in our relationships, those green flags? If you're not sure what they look like, therapy can help you identify them, actively practice them, and even embody that green flag energy yourself. Whether you're dating, married, building a friendship, or just working on yourself, therapy can help you form relationships that love you back. And there are plenty of reasons to start therapy today. We can't do it all by ourselves all the time. Therapy helps you develop healthy boundaries and improves your communication skills. It empowers you to set clear expectations and express your needs in relationships. Therapy provides tools for managing conflict in ways that strengthen your connections rather than break them down. And BetterHelp makes it easy by offering online therapy with over 30,000 licensed therapists to choose from. And if you need to switch therapists, you can do so at no extra cost. Discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Welcome back to the Locked On Warriors postcast. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel, and tonight the Warriors just absolutely, colossal collapse against the Utah Jazz with the dichotomy of the emotions right now. I am so upset about this loss. How do you lose to the Utah Jazz without Lauri Markkanen, without Collin Sexton? You have a double-digit point lead with less than 3 minutes to go, and you lose this game. It seemed like the Jazz just could not miss there in the last couple minutes. And the Warriors, all they could do was kind of send Steph on backdoor cuts to the rim because he can't bring the ball up the court without getting, shoes and chairs chucked at him and like putting a headlock by like 3 different dudes. It's like Draymond Green versus Rudy Gobert all over again. But, it's the other team attacking Steph Curry. Steph, we're being a little over the top here, but Steph is just absolutely getting the kitchen sink thrown at him every single time down the court. He cannot dribble the ball up the floor past half court without just getting trapped in a double team. And Steph is going to absolutely have more room to work with Jimmy Butler in this offense. And tonight, Buddy played well. I take a lot of shots at Buddy on the show. Tonight he played okay. He had 18 points, 7 of 14. He did absolutely just fall down in one of those last Jazz possessions when he was trying to play defense on Jordan Clarkson. And Clarkson, who, just by the way, when that guy gets hot, he might be, he can go toe-to-toe with any scorer in the NBA. When Jordan Clarkson is on fire, that guy is hard to stop. But he got Buddy Hield on him, and Clarkson made him look silly, man. Buddy Hield just falls to the ground, and Clarkson just net another 3. It was his second one in like the last, in the final minute 30 to play. And that was a big moment there. But Buddy Hield on offense, on defense, in these clutch moments isn't giving you what you want. And you look at this lineup, and he's the one that's most obvious to be sent to the bench. And we've spent my whole middle segment on our last show talking about how we wanted Moses Moody in the starting lineup over Buddy Hield. We did not get that. But Moses Moody did not play tonight. But with Jimmy Butler coming in, there's a 0% chance that Buddy Hield is going to keep his starting lineup spot. That is absolutely going to be going to Jimmy Butler. And you're going to have probably some combination of Steph, Jimmy, Draymond, for sure. I'm assuming Quentin Post is going to continue to get run at the 5 with the starting lineup until we see something else. The Warriors just have nothing at center. He's the only legitimate 7-footer on this team, and he gives you a little bit of 3-point action. Why not keep rolling with him? He looks like he's getting better in the pick and roll with Steph. Quentin Post, by the way, tonight, 5 of 9 and 10 points. So not bad for Posty, 7 boards. Also had 3 assists. So he played pretty well tonight. I expect him to continue to stick with the starting lineup. And then that last spot, maybe you give it to Pods, maybe you give it to a Guy Santos sometimes, maybe you do give it to a Moses Moody, which I think Moses Moody has absolutely earned the right to see some starts in the next couple of weeks. But, I think that you do see Buddy Hield go back to the bench, and that's where he really needs to be. I know he did have 18 points tonight, and he was, doing his thing there in the fourth quarter as a volume scorer, shot 50% from the field, 4 of 8 from 3. So really not a bad night by Buddy Hield. But man, is this Warriors lineup so much more potent with Jimmy Butler in the starting lineup. I mean, you can actually space the floor, and you can't just leave a guy alone in the corner and just say, maybe you'll hit these threes tonight, maybe you won't. Because if you leave Jimmy Butler alone, he is going to hurt you a lot more than Buddy Hield does when you leave him alone in the corner. So you basically only have like one spot you got to figure out in the starting lineup. And I know that Quentin Post is it's not the most exciting name to just pencil into your starting lineup, but with what he's been giving you lately, I think that the young guy deserves some more run. And especially with Jimmy Butler on this offense, he's going to get a lot of open looks. I mean, I really do like what this Warriors team is going to look like. And the only question that really remains is how much of a contender does this make the Warriors? Are we talking like what level of contention are we talking? Are we thinking that this team is certainly getting out of the play-in at this point? I know I certainly do. I think that this team is going to find a way to get out of the play-in tournament and into a 7-game playoff series. Can they win a 7-game playoff series? It depends on who they draw early on. I mean, if they're going up against like a Denver, maybe. If they're going up against like one of those more flawed teams in the middle, like maybe, but there's a lot of those teams are still much better than the Golden State Warriors. If you're going up against Oklahoma City, despite the fact that the Warriors have somehow beat them multiple times this season, which is insane to me, I don't think that they're going to be able to do that in the postseason. So especially when they get, Chet Holmgren back and they have all that size, and the Warriors, that's the one thing that this trade doesn't solve for them. You still very, very, very much so lack size on the interior. And I think that's ultimately going to be their undoing in this year's NBA season. But I do think that this trade, at minimum, gets you back into a 7-game playoff series. And once you're there, I mean, if you have Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy, I think most Warriors fans will say that we're okay with rolling the dice in that situation. We'll see what that group gives us. I mean, it's better than, infinitely better than the alternative solution for this season, which was just kind of ride it out. I would have liked to see a Vucevic trade if they could have gotten him back for exactly what they gave up. That's another thing that we haven't really gotten into on the show. We didn't really explain what the Warriors gave up for Jimmy Butler, but they really didn't give up a lot, man. You get to hold on to Kuminga, and you don't give away, like you give up a protected first-round pick. You give up Andrew Wiggins, who I think they sold as high as they possibly could on Wiggins, given the way he's been playing lately. And I think we all know that it's inevitable that Wiggins kind of comes back down to earth a little bit. He's not going to continue to play at the level he's played at. He's so streaky. He's so inconsistent. But right now he's on a heater, and his value is probably as high as it's going to be, just in time for the Warriors to be able to get something good in return. They also send out Dennis Schroeder and Kyle Anderson and Lindy Waters III. So you do give up all these role players, but hey, I think that Jimmy Butler is definitely, sometimes the sum is greater. Some of the parts is greater than, the individual. But in this case, I'm taking Jimmy Butler over the sum of those parts. Absolutely. So you don't have to give up a ton to go get that guy back. And Jimmy Butler immediately, by the way, signed a 2-year extension with the Golden State Warriors. So Jimmy, this isn't just a 1-year rental. This is like let's see what happens through the end of Steph and Draymond's career, most likely. And this is the last hurrah. This is the group that is very likely going to be the last, big 3 that Steph Curry plays with in his career. This is the Warriors' best attempt that they could have made at the trade deadline to make this team a legitimate contender this year. And they did right by Steph Curry. I mean, we have to applaud Mike Dunleavy because he did go and get the deal done. He did the best deal that he possibly could to make this team competitive and cohesive again. And that's something that I think that we all have to kind of, recognize, because Dunleavy's received a lot of flack. I mean, it's really hard to follow Bob Myers, like one of the greatest GMs in NBA history, but it's very tough to follow that act. And he's, I think, done a pretty damn good job. Mike Dunleavy, the one thing you can say about Dunleavy is he's not going to get, swindled on the trade. He's not going to overpay for anything. He's going to make sure he doesn't end up on the losing end of that trade. And I don't think that there's any way that the Warriors really could end up on the losing end of this trade here, barring like a horrific injury for Jimmy Butler, which let's hope that doesn't happen. But I think that ultimately Dunleavy went and made the best deal for the best player available, and it helps the Warriors win right now. So we got to recognize that. it's a lot easier to talk about this Jimmy Butler trade stuff than it is to talk about this loss, man. I just wow. I just looking at the chat, Andrew the GOAT, one of our everydayers. The Warriors lost to the Jazz tonight. That makes them look bad. And absolutely, yes, it does. The Warriors look absolutely terrible tonight, giving up this massive lead with just 3 minutes left to play. I want to be mad about this, but also I'm just too happy that the Warriors got Jimmy, man, to come on here and be too upset about this loss to the Utah Jazz. You were undermanned. All the justifications are just coming out of me right now, just because I feel so good about the Jimmy Butler trade. But for tonight, I'm gonna let the justifications fly. They were undermanned. They only had 10 available bodies, and 4 of them started the season in the G League. So it's not the end of the world. It's a frustrating loss. Don't get me wrong. It's only Utah's 5th win at home all season, and we're in February. But hey, let's look to the future. Let's be positive. For once, I don't have to give you 2 negatives in order to create a positive. You know how math works and stuff like that. I know that's not really how emotions in real life works, but we're going with it. And so tonight we can actually give you 1 legitimate positive instead of 2 negatives. The Warriors trade for Jimmy Butler and reinforcements are on the way. And I think that if you had Jimmy tonight, maybe that's enough to beat the Utah Jazz. Maybe that's enough to not give up 44 points in the fourth quarter, which guarantee you with Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green in the lineup at the same time, the Warriors will never have give up a 44-point fourth quarter. They might score 44 points in a fourth quarter with Jimmy on this team and Steph, but they are not going to surrender 44 points on the defensive end. That's about all the time that we have for you guys today. What a weird day, man. Like the whole dichotomy of emotions. Like you're happy, elated, not just happy, like absolutely ecstatic, elated that like Bill Walton at a Dead show, man, that the Warriors got Jimmy Butler. But you're also I want to punch a hole through my computer monitor screen, angry that they lost this game to the Utah Jazz. I just blows my mind how they lost this game without Markkanen, without Collin Sexton, Brandin Podziemski, a career-high 29 points. All for nothing, man. No more losses like this after Jimmy gets here, huh? That's the goal for the Warriors, is no more losses like this. Warriors in clutch time should get a lot better. We'll see what happens. I'm very interested to see how Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler mesh here in Golden State. All these things to keep an eye on as we go forward. But for the Warriors, got another game tonight or tomorrow night as they take on the Los Angeles Lakers, who just made a huge trade of their own. They got Luka now. Man, oh man, the NBA is wild. Stay tuned on the Locked On Warriors postcast. We'll be coming to you live tomorrow night as the Warriors take on the Lakers. We'll be coming to you live in the postcast as we always do, 7 p.m. tip for that one. It's on TNT. Thanks so much for tuning in. That's all the time we got. I'm your host, Eric Triple E Engel. We'll see you next time. Peace.